Hello, wonderful listeners. Today I'm reading chapter 4 of The Ice Giants. And where we've got up to the story so far is Elika has been having a strange dream, and she also has a glowing crystal. And right now she's talking to Aunt Caroline in Aunt Caroline's office about what it could all mean. So let's get started. Chapter 4. As they sat across from each other in the office, Aunt Caroline asked Elika lots of questions about the crystal and the dream, and wrote notes in her journal. Elika described everything she could possibly think of, including the exact way the moan sounded. She even had to moan, "alone," as high and as sad as the dream voice, while Aunt Caroline recorded it. That made Elika blush with embarrassment. If that recording ever got out, Elika's attempts to have normal friends would all be ruined. She certainly hoped Henry would never hear it. Elika was relieved when Aunt Caroline said she was done with questions. It felt like Elika had been in Aunt Caroline's office for hours, but only 20 minutes had passed. She was even more relieved when Aunt Caroline said she'd take the crystal for a while. Maybe the dreams would stop if it wasn't in her room at night. "Leave it with me," Aunt Caroline said, reaching for the crystal. "I'll do some tests on it later this afternoon." Elika gladly handed the crystal over to her aunt. But when Aunt Caroline closed her hand over the crystal, Elika felt a wrench in her heart. At the same time, Aunt Caroline shouted, "Ow!" and dropped it. "It burned me," Aunt Caroline shouted. She had a red mark on her palm. "It hurt me too," Elika said. She scooped the crystal up and held it to her heart. "It's not burning you?" Aunt Caroline asked. Elika shook her head no. "It's only a little warm," Elika said. "My heart hurt when you took it." She felt soothed now that the crystal was back with her. The quartz glowed gently. Aunt Caroline got burn cream from a first aid kit she had stashed under the desk and rubbed it on her palm. Elika sighed as she put the crystal back in its sock. It looked like she was stuck with it for a while. "I hoped if I gave you the crystal, the dream would go away," Elika said, disappointed. "Yes, I think the crystal and the dream are linked too," Aunt Caroline said, chewing her lip. "But how?" Aunt Caroline looked off into the distance for a while. She was silent for a long time. Elika shifted in her chair. Aunt Caroline?" Elika asked. "Oh, excuse me," Aunt Caroline said. "I realize the crystal has attached itself to you. I was just remembering a time when I had a similar situation. The Amber Giant called to me in a dream, too. A book helped me find him, and a doll." Elika tensed. Yes, I know the whole story of the weird way you found the Amber Giant," Elika said, "but I'm sure in this case it's not a giant. Maybe it's just a neighbor or something." Aunt Caroline studied Elika. "Does the voice in your dream sound like a human voice to you?" she asked. Elika thought about how it sounded so high and clear and broken. "Not really," Elika said. "It sounds like ice speaking, if ice could speak." Aunt Caroline smiled. "Another bit of poetry from Elika," she said. Elika frowned. "Ice speaking," Aunt Caroline said aloud as she wrote it in her journal. "So it's the voice in the dream and the glowing crystal," Aunt Caroline said. "Anything else you can think of to tell me?" "That's it," Elika said. "Okay, I'm on it," Aunt Caroline said. "I'll consult my books and try to get some theories going. Meanwhile, if anything changes, if anything new happens, tell me." Elika nodded. She was relieved to go, but she hesitated at the door. "Aunt Caroline, do you believe in promises?" Elika asked. Of course I do, Aunt Caroline said. Your grandma used to say a promise is written in the heart. So if you break a promise, you break your own heart. Well, could you promise not to tell anyone about my dream or the weird glowing crystal? Elika asked. Except my parents. They already know. Aunt Caroline thought for a moment, tapping her pen on her notebook. I would really like to tell my colleague Edmund, she said. He might be of help. He's an expert in creatures like giants. Elika took a deep breath. Already the fact that she was weird was spreading. First within the family, and now to someone named Edmund. Okay, but just him, Elika said. Promise? Aunt Caroline put her hands in a prayer position and bowed. It seemed formal enough, and Elika felt she could finally leave the office. As she walked out of the building and across the grassy lawn of the campus towards Dad's car, she felt lighter. At least someone else knew about Elika's problem, even if it was her crazy aunt. Surely she of all people could figure out what was going on and what to do about it. Hopefully the dream and glowing crystal weirdness would be over soon, and Elika could go back to being the most normal one in her family. Okay, thanks for listening, and see you in the next video for Chapter 5.